The liberals are using the signal leaks to run cover for the Israeli of Palestinians while simultaneously legitimizing American hegemony and warmongering in the region of West Asia and North Africa. Hi, EJ here. Welcome back to NonCompete. Today we're going to be talking about the signal leaks. If you already know the basic situation, you can skip ahead to this time right here on the screen and we'll jump into the main topic. Otherwise, I will now quickly recap, catch you up to speed with what's going on. Basically, top leaders from the Trump administration had a group chat on the app Signal. The chat included Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, Stephen Miller, Steve Witkoff, and Michael Waltz. And in that group chat, the senior officials planned a military strike against the Houthis. And the Houthis, if you weren't aware, are a rebel group based in Yemen that is supporting the Palestinian resistance against by shutting down shipping lanes in the Red Sea. The Trump officials in the group chat briefly discussed the situation, with J.D. Vance raising concerns that a military strike against the Houthis would benefit Europe more than the United States, and claiming for that reason that the strike would be a mistake because it would constitute bailing out Europe. Now, the reason we know about all this inside military planning that took place with all these top officials is rather hilarious. See, there was a journalist named Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, a huge critic of Trump, who was inadvertently added to the Signal group chat and, just basically sat there like a fly on the wall and recorded the whole thing with screenshots. Of course, this has been a huge embarrassment for the Trump administration. It's just not a good look for the people that were in this Signal group chat. Almost immediately after the Atlantic leaked this information to the press, the Senate held a hearing in which they admonished CIA Director John Ratcliffe and Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard. And it was really fun to watch these two monsters of history reduced to flop sweaty sad sacks on TV. If you have a couple of spare hours this evening, make some popcorn and watch the whole thing. Nothing truly substantial is likely to come out of the hearings, unfortunately, because the Democrats are toothless, but it's at least highly entertaining to watch fascists squirm and suffer through the hearing.
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security
Because
Council.
it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
Is it classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Senator, I was on a Signal messaging group.
So you were the John Ratcliffe on that chat?
I was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I provide some context, Senator, to that?
You're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the Signal thread?
I don't know if you use Signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information, not for targeting.
Well, neither
not
do I,
for
Senator.
anything remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
It absolutely is not, Senator. Were you not listening at the beginning?
No.
When I said that I was using it as permitted, it is permissible to use.
I agree that's your testimony.
In the signal chain that we have been talking about, was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
Any generic target?
I believe there was discussion around targets in general.
Mr. Ratcliffe?
I think that's consistent with my recollection. Again, I don't have access to that.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
I'm not talking about specific, any weapon or weapons system.
I don't recall specific names of systems or weapons being used or named within the
Well,
chat.
I'm not asking whether, I don't want you to tell me what the specific weapon was, but any weapon at all. Mr. Ratcliffe, same question.
I don't recall.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard?
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any
I
mention?
won't get into the detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this Signal chat.
Of course, liberal pundits and content creators are milking the situation for all it's worth. Every YouTuber worth their salt is cashing in on the clickbaitiness of the whole situation, present company included. But there's something that's been bothering me about all the coverage from the liberal side. So I thought I'd fire off a quick video to share my thoughts and hopefully point out some of the more subtle and pernicious ways in which bourgeois media manufactures consent for American hegemony and the in Israel. Manufacturing Consent, of course, is a book by Noam Chomsky that was first published in 1988, and we aren't going to be talking about that book in this video. Instead, we'll be talking about a book that came out 2 years earlier than Manufacturing Consent, and which is way, way, way better and far more explicitly class conscious. All right. Sorry for being petty there. Manufacturing Consent is a fine book. In fact, you really should read both books. They're good companions to each other. Manufacturing Consent does have good observations. So don't at me, nomads. So anyway, in this superior book, Inventing Reality by the superior Parenti, it is explained how capitalists influence the public by limiting the framing and scope of the ideas that we, the public, are exposed to. This basically restricts our perceptions of public affairs and gives us the illusion that we have free and open access to information. Even if the press does not mold our every opinion, it does mold opinion visibility. It can frame the perceptual limits around which our opinions take shape. Here may lie the most important effect of the news media. They set the issue agenda for the rest of us, choosing what to emphasize and what to ignore or suppress, in effect organizing much of our political world for us. The media may not always be able to tell us what to think, but they are strikingly successful in telling us what to think about. So today we're talking about framing. And look, I have a frame here. You might call it a framing device. 2025, the year that prop comedy comes back. Yes, we're talking about how the media frames information. This is a visual metaphor. It'll help you remember the core content of this video. I will wait for you all to finish laughing. Understanding this propaganda strategy of framing is crucial for understanding how the working class is influenced and controlled by capital. Our media shapes our understanding of reality by boxing us in so that we are only exposed to ideas which are deemed acceptable by the ruling class. Even when we don't believe what the media says, we are still hearing or reading their viewpoints rather than some other. They're still setting the agenda, defining what it is we must believe or disbelieve, accept or reject. The media exert a subtle, persistent influence in defining the scope of respectable political discourse, channeling public attention in directions that are essentially supportive of the existing political economic system. And shout out to Parenti for properly identifying political economy as one system. We have a video on that if you want to check it out, link in the description. So in the end, the workers are cowed and controlled without even realizing it. Ideas that fall outside of the confines of this discourse agenda are considered fringe and dismissed out of hand, or more likely, never even presented at all to the vast majority of working class people. In sum, the media set the limits on public discourse and public understanding. They may not always mold opinion, but they do not always have to. It is enough that they create opinion visibility, giving legitimacy to certain views and illegitimacy to others. The media do the same to substantive issues that they do to candidates, raising some from oblivion and conferring legitimacy upon them, while consigning others to limbo. This power to determine the issue agenda, the information flow, and the parameters of political debate so that it extends from ultra-right to no further than moderate center is, if not total, still totally awesome. And Parenti doesn't mean awesome like awesome. He means awesome like in the Bible, like the awesome power of Satan. All right, so now that we've reviewed Parenti's model, hopefully you all get this. We're talking about framing. Your opinion has to be inside this frame, and if you try to leave the frame, the media will just completely ignore you. That's the basic idea. You get it? You got it. Let's move forward. I feel really shitty today. If you haven't noticed, my voice is messed up. I haven't even left my house for like several days. I haven't been around any other people, but I think it was because I was sawing some wood and I foolishly did not wear a dust mask or anything like that, a respirator. I think I inhaled a lot of dust, so now I feel like I have a flu. So public service announcement, if you're going to saw something and there's going to be sawdust in your environment, wear a respirator. Not the kind of tip you expected in a non-compete video, and yet there you have it. We are always happy to surprise you with little tidbits of wisdom related to all kinds of things, including woodworking. Class-conscious woodworking channel, anybody interested? Anyone want to take me up on that? Would you click? Would you subscribe? Sound off in the comments. What am I talking about? Let's go back to the script. So, now we've reviewed Parenti's model of bourgeois propaganda, I can start talking about the problems I'm seeing with how liberals are covering the signal leaks. And I'm not just talking about the fact that they keep using the same two jokes, which are Hegseth is a DUI hire, which was funny the first time, and also calling this Operation Butt Dial, which again was funny the first time. But liberals are very good at running dad jokes into the ground. Far be it for me to criticize someone for using dad jokes, but once is enough. So let's dig into the problems I'm seeing with liberal coverage of the signal leaks. I warn you ahead of time, these are very subtle matters we're going to be talking about today. They are so subtle that they might seem insignificant until you realize that it's all in service to containing the discussion of the situation to a very limited range of acceptable opinions, and that leads to manufacturing consent for the in Palestine. What I hope to illustrate here is this. Liberals are using the signal leaks to run cover for the Israeli Palestinians while simultaneously legitimizing American hegemony and warmongering in the region of West Asia and North Africa. Hey, you already saw that in the little intro thing. That's called click confirmation. And that's supposed to make you keep watching. And I guess if you've gotten this far, it worked. Now you know how the sausage gets made here on YouTube. From what I can gather, this program of inventing reality has three main components. Number one, framing the signal leaks as a national security issue. Number two, portraying the Houthis as enemies while valorizing American military forces who are supporting the of Palestinians as the good guys. Number three, lionizing the reporter who leaked the chats, Jeffrey Goldberg, as a patriotic hero. National security. If you're old enough to remember when the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan broke out, I sure am, you'll certainly be familiar with this tried and true American war propaganda strategy. The basic idea is to frame an illegal imperialistic war of aggression as a matter of national security. And this propaganda line, which was also heavily used during the Vietnam War, tries to frighten Americans into consenting to war by implying that defeat would somehow threaten the security of the homeland. The truth, of course, is quite the opposite. America went out of its way to start these wars against nations that posed no threat to the USA. With the case of the Vietnamese, they were trying to liberate themselves from colonialism. The domino theory was used to frighten Americans into believing that if Vietnamese communists took power, then it would culminate in the whole world falling to communism. Of course, that turned out to not be the case, unfortunately. The world has not succumbed to communism. Waiting for the domino theory to kick in any day now, that would be nice. In Iraq and Afghanistan, Americans were conditioned to believe that the war was necessary to keep Americans from falling to Islamo-fascist invasion by al-Qaeda, who perpetrated the attacks of September 11, 2001. Even liberals who opposed the war would go out of their way to defend American military forces as defending freedom and fighting for democracy, though the wars in the region really just destabilized the region and led to the development of groups like ISIS. So here's a clip of Barack Obama on August 2nd, 2010, delivering a speech in which he is announcing the end of combat in Iraq. He teased things up by valorizing the Vietnam War as a war to defend the freedom and democracy of Americans.
In the life of our nation, not every generation has been summoned to defend our country in its hour of need. But every generation, to answer that call, has done so with honor and with courage. Many of you served in the jungles of Vietnam. You also served with honor.
And he goes on to make the same comparison to the illegal war in Iraq, again, building it up as some sort of defense of American freedom and democracy.
Today, your legacy of service is carried on by a new generation of Americans. Some stepped forward in a time of peace, not foreseeing years of combat. Others stepped forward in this time of war, knowing they could be sent into harm's way. For the past 9 years, in Afghanistan and Iraq, they have borne the burdens of war. They and their families have faced the greatest test in the history of our all-volunteer force, serving tour after tour, year after year. Through their extraordinary service, they have written their own chapter in the American story. And by any measure, they have earned their place among the greatest of generations.
And it should also be noted that the war in Iraq in particular had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. These wars actually make things less safe in the quote-unquote homeland. And if you don't realize that, then you must be Dick Cheney, I guess. Similarly, with the signal leaks, the liberal media is making a lot of political hay out of the national security issue, and in a very subtle and insidious way, building up the idea in the minds of the public that the Houthis and defending the in Palestine is in some way defending the security of the USA. This is what Chomsky would call doctrinal language. See, I read Chomsky. You Chomsky fans, you need to not be so sensitive, all right?
This is pretty dangerous stuff that we're talking about here. It's reckless, but also very dangerous for service members and our national security.
This will really hurt our national security leadership right now, especially with the military.
It is a very dangerous time for the country.
We can't afford to have such recklessness and irresponsibility among the people who are meant to guard our national security.
This is information that could put people's lives at risk. It could put operations at risk that people say.
These materials are national defense information. End of story. Both of these things we're dancing around the fact that these are things critical to our national security.
In truth, we are just destabilizing the region, widening the scope of global war, and enabling fascist Zionists to continue sowing seeds of war and chaos in the region. Support our troops. Another common method of defending the illegal and unjustified wars in Iraq and Afghanistan was the rise of support our troops propaganda, an association between unjustified criminal acts of war perpetrated by the US military with concepts like fighting for freedom and defending America. Again, acting as though invading a sovereign nation on the other side of the planet somehow secures democracy and freedom for Americans at home. And would you believe, this is embarrassing to admit, I've admitted it before, I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker when I was around 18, 19 years old. I was fully in support of the Iraq War. Of course, I didn't sign up for the military, but I did, embarrassingly enough, support the war for about a year or two before I realized that it was bupkis. Yeah, young, impressionable EJ did indeed fall for the propaganda. There, but for the grace of, well, no, there with the grace of God went I. This is a very biblical episode of Non-Compete. Are these episodes? Is this a season? What season of Non-Compete is this? So this support our troops thing is a very old propaganda technique going back at least as far as the Vietnam War. And as an olive branch to Chomsky stands, there is a clip right here, I'm about to share it, of Nomsky. And as an olive branch to all you Chomsky stands out there, here's a clip of Noam talking about the diversionary tactic of slogans like support the troops, recorded way back in 1998. It's a good clip. Chomsky was ahead of his time on this one. Take it away, Noam Chomsky.
The point of public relations slogans like support our troops is that they don't mean anything. Of course, there was an issue. The issue was, do you support our policy? But you don't want people to think about the issue. That's the whole point of good propaganda. You want to create a slogan that nobody's going to be against, and I suppose everybody will be for because nobody knows what it means because it doesn't mean anything. But its crucial value is it diverts your attention from a question that does mean something. Do you support our policy? And that's the one you're not allowed to talk about.
Real quick, as you can tell, this video has been egregiously censored by YouTube, and the way that they censor is so obnoxious. We have to upload the video, wait hours to find out if they're going to demonetize it or not, and then when they do demonetize it, we have to re-upload it again. We have to do this several times. In this video, we have to do it 4 or 5 times. That's extremely time-consuming, and it means the content is delayed, which with a time-sensitive news story like this is really bad for the channel. So if you could please support what we're doing, if you find this information useful, there are many ways that you can do that. Subscribe, join our free Patreon tier, consider donating, buy some merch or a book, something like that. We would really appreciate it. YouTube does not want you to see information like this. They actively keep information like this away from you. So we really could use your help in spreading this information. Like, comment, share, all that stuff. Anyway, back to the video. So we're seeing this same kind of support our troops rhetoric being drummed up by liberals now in the coverage of the signal leaks. It's subtle. You might not even have noticed it, but it's there. Liberals are summoning rage and ire over the fact that our American troops were endangered by the leaks, that we were risking failure for the American operation against the Houthis, which we are implicitly supposed to be backing. We are supposed to want the American military to defeat the Houthis in their fight against. We've seen this kind of rhetoric trotted out by DNC reps in Congress during the hearings.
Director, I want to thank you and all the people who work with you and all the witnesses and the men and women, the brave men and women who are putting their lives on the line each and every day for this country. And to the military as well, we are grateful and we recognize the sacrifice and dedication.
I have huge respect for the CIA, huge respect for our men and women in uniform. But this was a question that's on the top of minds of every American.
Now, when you watch Himes speak in this next clip, remember, this was an operation that targeted a residential building, and dozens of innocent civilians died in this operation. This is targeted assassination, which is a war crime. And also remember that this operation was in support of genocide. This is the operation that Representative Himes is defending in this clip. You have to keep that in mind when you hear what he says.
Everyone here knows that the Russians or the Chinese could have gotten all of that information, and they could have passed it on to the Houthis, who easily could have repositioned weapons and altered their plans to knock down planes or sink ships.
We are also, of course, seeing this support our troops propaganda rhetoric coming from the mainstream liberal press.
But I'd ask Hegseth or the president, why don't they pick up the phone and call some of the parents of the sailors who were on the aircraft carrier, the Truman, that deployed from Virginia, when their sons and daughters were flying some of these planes? If that information about where and when we were going to launch this attack was obtained by the Houthis, they could have deployed their defenses, which are pretty damn good. They've taken down planes in the past, and American lives would have been lost.
There is not zero risk that our young men and women in uniform, the ones who flew those F-35s and F-18s,
Congressman, how was an American life put into jeopardy?
We will find
Congressman,
out.
how?
Because,
fine, you've made a claim. Tell me how an American life was put into jeopardy.
Because in an insecure channel, in what was acknowledged as a mistake before, whether it was a day or 2 hours or 5 hours, in a signal chat that we know. Do you want an answer to your question? In a signal chat that we know that the Russians could intercept, they might have told the Houthis in an hour. And in half an hour, they're moving their anti-aircraft stuff around. It is by the grace of God that we don't have pilots or sunken ships right now.
Now, in 99% of these clips, there is no counterpoint offered from a Yemeni perspective. And the coverage is even so egregious that it loops footage of Yemeni civilians in the poorest country in the world, running from these blasts. These are innocent, non-combatant civilians. I have to blur it out because of YouTube censorship, even though, MSNBC can show this footage. I have to blur it out. Love that. Anyway, the obvious subtext here, when they're running this footage, almost gleefully showing these civilians running away from these blasts, while they're talking about how important it is to protect American troops' lives, the obvious subtext is that American lives are valuable. The lives of these Yemeni civilians have no value. That is the subtext that is being pushed down the throats of the American people with this kind of propaganda. That's what's going on here.
في شارع العام في حي عصر على أعيان مدنية لا يوجد فيها معسكر ولا يوجد فيها مخازن أسلحة ولا يوجد فيها كما ترون صوروا وتشوفوا هذا.
American lives would have been lost.
So this entire signal leak situation is being boxed in by the mainstream media with a spectrum of basically two opinions. The right-wing perspective, which is that the attack on the Houthis was very successful and no harm came to American troops, so what's the big deal? That's the right-wing opinion. Versus the liberal perspective, which is that these signal leaks recklessly endangered American troops who are heroically defending American freedom, which should make us all very angry because we should be supporting American military poorest country on earth in support of a yeah. And if your opinion falls outside of that spectrum, then you're you're a freak, a weirdo. You're not allowed into the cool kids club of mainstream press or YouTube channels that get millions of dollars of dark money donations on, from liberals or from fascists. And you should notice something that both of these sides of the debate have in common. Both sides are framed in such a manner that the American military operations are presented as justified, even heroic. The fact that this military operation was undertaken in support of a horrendous which to this date has taken the lives of over 50,000 innocent civilians in Palestine, is completely left out of most of these discussions you're seeing. Worse yet, the Houthis are being portrayed as the enemy for waging their resistance against the relentless destruction of Palestine. In truth, the Houthis are on the right side of history, and it's the USA that is acting as an enemy to all of humanity, along with Israel, by enabling this in the first place. Framing the discussion such that Americans are seen as the good guys who are defending freedom and the Houthis are evil just can't say that word on YouTube because it's run by baby brains, but their label is for sacrificing their lives to defend Palestinian civilians. The American public is confined to a perceptual straitjacket. The range of opinions being offered is limited to these two sides, which both endorse, justify, and even glorify America's military support of Israel in carrying out its brutal crimes against humanity while demonizing anyone who fights to resist the. Now, am I saying that I want harm to come to American troops? Not at all. In fact, I'm quite pissed that any troops, American or otherwise, are being sent off to risk their lives in support of such a terrible crime against the world. I would much prefer that American troops stay home, be evacuated from the Red Sea altogether. I would much prefer peace. The people who virtue signal about supporting the troops and cry foul whenever anyone suggests they are indeed not fighting for freedom and democracy are the same people who completely ignore the suffering American troops go through when they're discarded after they come home from war. And that's been the case for at least the 20 years that I've been paying attention, at least the 20 years that people my age have been serving in the military. Now here's a clip of Michael Parenti talking about support our troops. That's right, Chomsky and Parenti both have support our troops clips. And of course, Parenti's is better. Olive branch rescinded. Chomskers. Team Parenti wins again.
If patriotism means supporting our troops, as the people in the White House keep telling us, then no one's more hypocritical, no one's more lacking in patriotism than our present rulers. In 2003-04, hundreds of U.S. troops who had been wounded in Iraq were warehoused for months at places like Fort Stewart, Georgia, in hot, dirty, overcrowded cement barracks waiting for medical treatment. They had to hobble across the sand to use the bathroom and had to pay for their toilet paper. And only after protests from the U.S. Senate did the White House stop charging wounded soldiers $8 a day for their hospital meals. Many of the badly wounded reported that they were seeing their pay and health benefits severely reduced now that they were no longer fit for active duty. You see, once you're no longer useful to the empire treats you like it treats anyone else, just as garbage.
Nearly 6,000 veterans have already lost their jobs and been terminated from federal service at an unprecedented rate, and will all enter the civilian workforce with less protections. While my time is limited, I just wanted to say this. This isn't subjective. This is evidence. This is evidence. In less than 2 months, this administration has proved itself to be the most anti-veteran administration ever.
There's almost 6,000 veterans that are terminated. It was just reported today that 80,000 VA employees are going to be terminated. They have the most amount of veterans. It shows you that the billionaires are the ones who matter, and they're going to step on anybody to get them what they want. So it's unfortunate, but a lot of people are going to suffer.
If we truly supported the troops, we wouldn't be destroying their lives by sending them to fight in the name of and imperialism, full stop. And the fact that so many liberals are leaving this out of the discussion speaks volumes about the true agenda being set by capitalists who control our media. Jeffrey Goldberg, a real American hero. Related to the support our troops narrative, another common refrain I'm hearing from liberal pundits is this. Jeffrey Goldberg, the journalist who broke the story, the person who was in the Signal chat, is a true blue, red-blooded American patriot for the way in which he handled the story. See, Goldberg was quick to leave the Signal group chat as soon as he realized it was legit, and he censored out classified and sensitive information at first that might endanger American troops and operatives. For instance, he initially withheld the name of a CIA agent, and he censored out information about troop deployments and military equipment pertaining to the of the Houthis. This had liberals singing his praises as a glorious American patriot. And by the way, I'm allowed to do that accent because I'm from South Carolina. In fact, that's my real accent. I kind of hide it. I've been hiding it for so long, I don't even really know what my real accent is anymore, but people give me shit for doing my jokey Southern accent. I'm one of the people that's allowed to do that accent, okay? Because I'm from South Cackalack. Don't you forget it. I don't really care if you forget. I hope you do forget that. In the Senate hearings immediately after the chat transcript was leaked, the leakers vehemently denied that they had leaked classified information in the group texts. Goldberg then asked the Trump administration for permission to leak the classified information. I think it's notable that Goldberg did not leak this information without permission from Trump's team. Anyway, after he leaked the classified info, liberal pundits continued to sing his praises as an American hero.
Imagine if that Signal chat had gone to a hostile foreign adversary, or imagine it had gone to someone who was not a patriot like Jeffrey Goldberg.
The CIA director seems to have shared the name of a covert operative who Jeffrey Goldberg had the wisdom from having covered national security issues for decades not to share in his reporting.
And the award in this episode for Best Liberal Propagandist goes to Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who managed to hit all three talking points in one go. He raises the issue of national security, he raises the issue of supporting our troops, and he manages to call Goldberg a patriot all in one go. It's a hat trick. It's beautiful to watch. Let's take a look.
We're talking now about our military. We're talking now about our national security has been compromised because they're using a texting app to share plans about how they're going to attack the Houthis abroad. If someone had been on that chain that hadn't been a patriotic American like Jeffrey Goldberg, if someone who wanted to maybe get something out of it had been on that chain, it would have gone abroad. It would have been broadcast to other people. The Houthis would have known that our soldiers, our pilots were coming.
To be clear, I don't really blame Goldberg for the way he went about releasing this information. If he had released the sensitive info without a go-ahead from Trump's team, there is every chance that he himself might face severe consequences and retribution, up to and including being imprisoned. What I do blame him for is his tacit support of the Houthis.
I don't like the Houthis as much as they don't like the Houthis.
And the fact that he is a hardcore Zionist who served as a prison guard in Israel in 1990. This clip of Jeffrey Goldberg speaking about Israel in 2012 does double duty because not only does it show Jeffrey Goldberg's tacit support for Israeli Zionism, but also it shows that the liberal Democrats have been supporting Israeli Zionism quite militantly, going at least as far back as the Obama administration, as Goldberg explains.
Concern was to stop Iran from getting the you should vote for Obama rather than Romney.
Yeah. It caused a bit of a controversy, obviously, because people think that the Republicans are going to be stronger. And their whole argument of the Republicans, and Mitt Romney in particular, was that Obama's weak and feckless on foreign policy.
Threw Israel under the bus.
Threw Israel under the bus. You know, I mean, which of course is ridiculous. The Iron Dome system is partially funded by the United States. So if that's they threw Israel under the Iron Dome, which is a good thing, not a bad thing.
And he's been steering the Atlantic into being a pro-Zionist propaganda outlet for his entire tenure there, framing Goldberg as a real patriot, a hero for protecting the United States empire and its secrets, is just another way of legitimizing, justifying, and glorifying American support of the in Palestine. And I think it's also noteworthy that they don't mention that he himself is a Zionist. I think these details are relevant. Hopefully by now, you can see that liberals are using the Signal leaks situation to run cover for the Zionist and to justify attacks against resistance fighters. The Signal leaks aren't just some embarrassing slip-up for Trump's cronies. They're a masterclass in how the ruling class manipulates public perception to justify empire. Liberals are outraged, not because the U.S. is bombing a group defending Palestinians from in the poorest country on earth, but because the optics were botched. They're furious, not because American troops are being used as cannon fodder for Zionist slaughter, but because someone leaked the receipts. And that's the real scam in all of this. The debate they've framed isn't about whether the U.S. should back it's about how competently we back. National security is invoked to sanctify war crimes. Support the troops becomes a cudgel to silence dissent. Patriotic journalism means protecting empire, not exposing it. So I'd like you to ask yourself this question. Why is the only acceptable criticism of the Trump administration, according to liberals, about operational secrecy and security and never about the moral horror of what they're supporting in Palestine? Because as Parenti warned, the media doesn't just report reality, it invents it. And right now, it's inventing a world where the Houthis are not resistant fighters. American bring stability, not massacre of civilians. And is just a PR problem to manage. Our job, smash the frame. This is a very well-built frame. How do you smash it? Holy shit, that is a well-made frame. This is like a real good metaphor for how hard it is to smash the frame. There we go. Smash the frame of bourgeois propaganda. Was that too dramatic? Was that too violent? Yeah, okay. Now we can smash the frame more easily. Sorry, sometimes I like to be extra. The signal leaks did not endanger troops. They exposed a war machine built on lies. The real scandal isn't that Trump's team got caught. It's that liberals are still cheering for the game. So next time you hear some pundit clutching their pearls about national security, remember, they're not defending America. They're defending the right of capital to massacre in its name. If you found these ideas useful, I highly encourage you to read Inventing Reality by Michael Parenti and that other book by that other guy, I guess. And you should also read this book. This is our curriculum on dialectical materialism. It's not directly related to propaganda, but you will learn a lot of important stuff in here about the relationship between the material world and human consciousness. And if you want, you can support us on Patreon and Comradery. We do appreciate it. We also have a free Patreon tier if you just want to get updates from us from time to time.
Oh yeah, and my partner Luna of Luna Oi has a brand new video coming out in about 24 hours at youtube.com/LunaOi. It's about the role of Australia in the Vietnam War. It's good stuff. Here's a clip.
When most people think of the Vietnam War, they think of a war between Vietnam and the USA, but that's only part of the history. In reality, the war involved a complex web of nations, not just Vietnam and the USA. A few socialist nations like China and the Soviet Union supported Vietnam indirectly, providing weapons and supplies. Former colonies of France like Laos and Cambodia fought alongside Vietnam to defend our homeland. On the other side, numerous nations allied with the USA, and some of these imperialist nations even helped commit horrible atrocities against civilians, not just in Vietnam, but also in Laos and Cambodia. These illegal war crimes remain a dark and often overlooked chapter of the war. In this series, we will explore the lesser-known stories of nations that participate in the occupation of my country, Vietnam.
So subscribe to Luna now so you don't miss it when it launches as soon as it comes out. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a banger.
So yeah, that was the video. Thanks for watching it. I'm going to take a nap. You can take a nap too if you want. I give you permission. Nap away.